Καλημέρα και πάλι για όσους ήρθαν τώρα. Είναι η τρίτη συνεδρίαση σήμερα που καλύπτει λίγο πολύ την ίδια θεματική. Η θεματική είναι το Global Strategy Group, αυτός ο θεσμός του ΟΣΑ, και τα θέματα τα οποία συζητήθηκαν κατά την τελευταία συνεδρίαση του Global Strategy Group. Στις δύο προηγούμενες συνεδριάσεις μιλήσαμε για τις οικονομικές, τις κοινωνικές, τις πλευρές της εκπαίδευσης, της τηλεεργασίας. Η τρίτη συνεδρίαση θα εστιάσει πάνω στον ίδιο το θεσμό, τι είναι το Global Strategy Group και σε τι χρησιμεύει. Έχουμε μαζί μας τον we have with us Ulrik Knudsen, who is the Deputy Secretary General of the OECD, and Leonidas Christopoulos, who is the Secretary General of the Ministry of Digital Reform, and who is representing the Minister, Prevelakis, who unfortunately could not come because of COVID. Why those two personalities? Ulrik has created the Global Strategy Group, and he will explain to us why this creation was necessary and what is the function of the Global Strategy Group. And Leonidas represents Prevelakis, who is the actual chair of the Global Strategy Group. So I would like to ask Ulrik to take the floor and explain to us the history of the Global Strategy Group.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. Thank you so much, George. To understand what the Global Strategy Group is today and why we created it back in 2012, more or less exactly 10 years ago today, you need to go back to the predecessor committee, which is called the Executive Committee in Special Session. It sounds a little bit boring, and it was becoming a little bit boring as well. The idea was we still have an executive committee at the OECD, just below the level of council, where George sits, among others. And then we'd had an executive committee in special session where we would bring in people from capitals. The problem was that the level was getting lower and lower, and it was read out statements, and to be honest, the committee wasn't really functioning. So a group of ambassadors said there was a need to revamp this committee, make it more lively, give it new life. And in 2012, after I had been ambassador a few years earlier to the OECD for my country, Denmark, I was elected to spearhead the concrete efforts. And I chose the title Global Strategy Group for three reasons. One for each of, one for the G and one for the S and one for the G. Global, because we needed to reach out to key partners. At the time we talked about enhanced engagement. This was actually the time where we were still contemplating accession with Russia. Sounds strange today, but those were the days. And then we had the enhanced engagement countries, really the emerging economies, now we call them key partners, China, Indonesia, India, South Africa, and Brazil, who is now on its way to becoming an accession country as well. At the time, we thought it absolutely essential for the OECD to reach out to the rest of the globe, thus the global strategy, because we wanted to attract people from capitals to have discussions that were a little bit more strategic in nature and not just a committee, deciding on a certain recommendation or another legal instrument, but where we could attract the level of deputy ministers, permanent secretaries of state to come to the OECD, have a truly global strategic discussion. We chose topics such as the digital transformation, globalization. Now Greece is chairing. They chose last year teleworking. Again, a topic that cuts across a lot of issues. So that was the basic idea. And then I chose the name group to make it sound a little bit more informal than a committee. Again, we had these discussions under Chatham House rules. We wanted policymakers to have a different kind of meeting. You could maybe say something in between a normal international conference and the Delphi Economic Forum, where you have a chance to go a little bit outside the normal script. I think in all fairness, we succeeded with that in the first couple of years. At least I led the first 5 meetings. We tried to make the format also a little bit more lively. We allowed guest speakers. We did breakout sessions so that you could have more intimate settings to discuss issues. We even introduced electronic polling on certain issues. And actually, many of these initiatives were then later taken on board by the highest organ in the OECD, the Ministerial Council meeting. And I'd say today, the Global Strategy Group, as I said, now chaired by Greece, sits there as a halfway house in the autumn between our Ministerial Council meetings in the spring. It's pretty new. We've only had 3 countries chairing it, Denmark first, then Switzerland, now Greece. And I'll maybe pass the baton by saying that actually, thinking about it last night, the strategy and the group is perhaps just as necessary today as it was 10 years ago, maybe for slightly different reasons. At the time, we wanted to go global because we wanted to make sure we had a just and fair globalization. Now we need to be global at the OECD and reach out in order to save a world order that's really crumbling just before our eyes or underneath our feet as we speak. We spoke about that yesterday in a panel. The geopolitical situation is more dire than it has been for 33 years. Strategy, again, because I think more than ever, we need to take a strategic view of things and group the informality of it because we need trust. We need to build trust. So I think that there is a renewed need for global, for strategic thinking and for the group thinking. And I hope the Greeks are proud that Greece has taken on the chairmanship with my 2 fellow panelists here in absolute key roles, and we look forward to the next GSG in the autumn.
Leonidas.
Well, let me just say that I'm very much honored to be discussing with Mr. Knudsen because he's one of the people that actually reconstructed a very important structure of the OECD. And as we all know, the OECD is a very important key player in the global strategy arena, let's say, in order to shape future policies. Now, and of course, Greece is honored to be chairing this very, very important policy arena in order to discuss. And we had a very interesting discussion on teleworking back in, I think it was November or December, I don't remember which month it was, but it was a very interesting discussion between the participants, the countries that participated. Now, as you know, Greece and personally me, representing here the chair, Minister Prevelakis, who is chairing the Global Strategy Group. Greece has is one of the founding members of the OECD, and, at least in the area of what I have been doing over the past years. The past 10 or 15 years, we have been collaborating with the OECD on various issues on our policy agenda. I can just give you some examples. Very important pieces of legislation that have changed the landscape of the Greek state, of Greek governance, where the result of recommendations or of reports done by the OECD, like the law on the executive state, like the better regulation agenda in Greece, like education policies in Greece, like the reduction of bureaucracy that ended up in a very concrete national policy of public procedures in Greece, and that was done by the now Prime Minister, Mr. Mitsotakis, back in 2012-2014 when he was Minister of Administrative Reform. So working with the OECD so many years and having actual practical effects on our policies in Greece by the recommendations and the assistance of the OECD, it only comes, in my eyes, as a natural development that Greece should be much more involved in the more strategic planning and discussions that the OECD is trying to do when facing, as you said, a very complex world that crumbles with multiple crises, financial crisis, environmental crisis, health crisis, wars, etc. And I believe that this arena, the GSG group, should be a very key arena in which to discuss how we will all face these things in the coming years. In my opinion, teleworking is, of course, a very important issue because it changes a lot of things in the economic and social environment of people, of employees, of employees' families, and all these issues. It cuts across everything. But I believe that for the next years, and I mentioned that in the earlier panel, what we should focus, and what is the big stake in my opinion, is to see how generally how governments will adopt a more, let's say, adaptive and agile governance systems in order to be able to combine a certain flexibility in public policies and a certain stability in their institutions in order to be able to maintain people's trust, as you very rightly mentioned, in the face of all this crisis. It is very important to see whether we can modify, whether we can transform, let's say, through technology, but also through institutional arrangements, how we implement governance structures and in order to maintain this trust, which, of course, is linked to these issues, because that is what the OECD again tells us, that trust is very much linked in the responsiveness and resilience of institutions. It has said in a very important report back in 2017 that I had read. And of course, resilience and responsiveness has to do with adaptive governance in my eyes. So I think that this will be the big stake in the future. This is a discussion that we need to start having in the area of the OECD and of other, of course, international organizations in order to be able to face all the multiple crises that tend to come and will come in the following years.
We have discussed about the previous GSG, and now we have some idea about the next GSG, probably the new ideas. We have a few minutes left. Let me say that what we tried with those 3 sessions was to bring in Greek and the Delphi Forum a taste of what is happening at the OECD, and also a taste of the debate, of the last debate on the global, on the teleworking and teleeducation. Greece owes a lot to the OECD. The OECD has given a lot of support again and again to Greece during the various stages of its evolution, starting already from the Marshall Plan in the 50s and then the 60s, the period of the very rapid growth, economic growth of Greece. And then during the economic crisis, the OECD has been of great support and great help. And in a certain way, we want also to return something to the OECD, not only to be on the receiving side, but also in the contributing side. And in this way, we have, first of all, we have participated in the competition for the position of the Secretary General, and Greece has managed quite well, arriving to the 3rd position. Ulrik was also in the competition, and we have had a kind of very friendly competition, and I think it was extremely useful, this kind of competition, in order to reveal the various issues and the various themes of concerning the OECD. Then we got into all those crises, and the OECD plays a very important role. And in that sense, the Global Strategy Group has become even more pertinent, even more important than in the past. It's essential to look ahead in a more relaxed way than we usually do, and to work really globally, and also to work in a more informal way. So what Ulrik has created has been really, let's say, a proof of foresight in the sense that he saw ahead, and we have the results today. We are trying to be very present, and we have the other contribution, which is our chairmanship of the Global Strategy Group. So I would like again to thank Ulrik, who will have the last word before rushing to the airport to go to Switzerland.
It's very kind of you, George, to say that the OECD, that Greece owes a lot to the OECD, and I'd just like to say that goes the other way as well. We owe a lot to Greece as well. You mentioned your formidable candidature of Greece. Tomorrow the SG is coming, or maybe later today. We all back him. Now, of course, I have two colleagues on the front row here. You've provided a platform for the OECD here at the Delphi Economic Forum. The efforts of both of you in the GSG is highly appreciated, not to mention, of course, the daily contributions of your tremendous ambassador and my good friend George. So I want to thank Greece for all of that. I don't think that the relationship between the OECD and Greece has ever been in a better shape than it is now. So it's something that's of mutual benefit. And I think this is public and there are rolling cameras, so I'm not sure how far I can go, but I know that we have more projects to come for OECD-Greece collaboration.
Tomorrow we have the highlight with the meeting and the common presentation by the Secretary General and the Prime Minister.
So thank you.
If I can conclude with one comment, from Minister Prevelakis and from myself, who are working on the GSG, we will do our best and as long as we have the chair, to be more productive, for the GSG to be more productive on the things that we need to discuss.
Okay. Thank you, and we are on time.
Excellent.
Thank you.